Good day, everybody. Today's the 16th of August, 2025. We're going to continue our exploration into buying real estate. I've covered about 7 videos up to this point talking about should you even buy a house? What's the best way to get your best deal from lenders and realtors when it comes to buying here in Santa Clarita Valley? And then I moved from there. How should you be searching? Should you be searching for your actual maximum price? Should you back it off a little bit? How does that work? And then after that, of course, how do you search for real estate? Do you trust what your agent's sending you as being the best data, or do you want to do something else? Are you looking on your own? What are those best systems? Continue that process and that question process as after you find that particular property that you're looking at, market dependent, of course, what should be your offer? Should you give the seller what they want? Should you back it off? Should you increase it even? How does that look? And then what happens if you're in multiple offers with other people? What are the best ways to approach that? And then what else should you be considering when you are starting to scribe the offer? What's the best way to put it together? How can you compete with those people out there that are also in competition with you buying this particular house? And what if it's crickets? What if you're the only one? Then maybe should you come under that actual listing price? And then, of course, you're going to do your due diligence. You're going to look at where they're priced and what that actual value is. In fact, backing up a couple of videos talking about the searching for real estate, that should already have been baked in. Your agent should have already been searching for properties that they believe they can have reduced down to your particular level of affordability, the level that you would be able to write your offer for. Let's say where you believe your maximum amount would be purchasing a property, but tentative on, of course, Melrose and HOAs. But let's say that's that number. If they see properties that are overpriced, 50, 60, 70,000, and they're able to validate that, those are some that they should be bringing to you, depending on the type of market. If stuff's going up hand over fist, month over month over month, then maybe that's not the best strategy. But in some cases, if they do see a property, long time on market, overpriced, then why not attack that one for you with an offer? Then I talked about riding the offer, how to make your offer better than other offers without having to attack price. Price is easy. Anybody can say they're going to offer more. But how do you make that offer more attractive without attacking price? And discussed what happens after we submit the offer. What does that look like? How soon do they have to get back with us? And then, of course, after that, if they're not going to respond, that's one of their options. They can counter you. How do you make sure you're part of the countering process? If you're in competition and now you've gotten the offer, they accepted yours after maybe a back and forth counter with them, but you're the one that was chosen. What's that next step? So this is where we are today. That next step is very valuable. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Let me pull up the numbers and look what's happening up in the real estate sector. If I can find the right screen, 786 total active listings on the market for sale. That's of today. Moving into these particular listings, we have in the last week, we've had 7 coming soon listings. 71 listings are brand new on the market for sale. That's the past week. We have 101 properties that have had their prices changed. Don't freak out. That's very, very common. We've been sitting around the 100 mark for quite a while. We have 17 properties back on market. 42 properties have gone active under contract. That's into escrow, have gone deeper into escrow. That's pending. That's pretty much, there's no return from that. Basically, they're very confident that these properties are going to completely finish escrow and they're going to be sold. So they pull them off of that status, which indicate maybe we'll have a look at these. Maybe people can come in and write backup offers on them. So in this particular case, they're very confident these things are going to completely finish. So then they put it pending. And then we have 60 that have closed this week. 12 expired, 14 canceled, 9 have been put on hold, and 13 have been withdrawn from the market. One of the things that I will tell you as we get into our discussion today, in the real estate world, a lot of buyers go into it misinformed. They're not getting the education. They're not having their agent explain to them what happens, or at least giving them some kind of validity online and saying, listen, you can go to my website. I've written something about this. You can look and explore and understand more about this part of the process. One of the parts of the process, and this is what we're going to talk about today, what happens when you have your offer accepted? What's that value, right? You're going to have to, you want a home inspection for sure. Even if the seller does a pre-sale home inspection, you have the report, you have a laundry list of things that they hired professional contractors to come in and remedy on the property over time or didn't even know existed. That's super honorable when you run into a property where the seller's done that kind of due diligence. And you as a real estate buyer, trust me, I've represented thousands looking at real estate. Some of the sellers do the upkeep and how they care for the properties. Other sellers, oh my God, a complete godsend. They've taken care of the property. They've kept every single receipt. I mean, above and beyond my capability as a human being. But, you run into those people that are just in that regard, absolutely yes. And yeah, I've seen those. Having that kind of seller is incredible. But still, even with that kind of seller, you got to do your own due diligence. You got to make sure that you have your own people. That's why you don't want to hire the seller's agent. You got to have your own people. So now you have your own people going in and doing the home inspection. You have the appraisal company that's representing the lender that you're choosing going to go in and appraise the property as well. But before you start, see, those two things cost you money. They're dollars each, the home inspector and the appraisal. They're going to cost you some coin. Before you start spending coin, and that's money at the time of service, boom, here's the credit card for the appraiser. Boom, here's your credit card or cash for the home inspector. You might be able to get a better deal cash, but that's what it is. What's that next step? Well, what clients to do is this. If we get an offer accepted, we're going to make a quick appointment, probably that same day, in that evening or that next day. We're going to go start to talk to the neighbors. We want to go door knock the neighbors. And I'll be there right with you. We take everybody that's going to be living in the house, even if you got a family of 5. If you're comfortable, we'll do this. Some buyers are not comfortable at all. This side may be a bit old school, but we all go together. We all go like a big happy family, and we're going to go meet everybody that's going to have an impact on the property that you're in escrow with. Want to talk to the neighbors on either side. Want to talk to the neighbors in the back. Onto the block in the back, we'll look at Google Maps and we'll figure out what those residences are that share property boundaries with the subject property. The ones on either side, of course, especially if there happens to be some kind of tree overgrowth coming from the neighbor property, maybe a massive root structure that you see. All these things impact your property. So it's important to kind of find out who's there. And if they're answering the door and they're not very friendly, maybe this is something you need to take into account with. And then if there's an HOA, maybe there's another enforcement mechanism. But really meeting neighbors, the point being is you meet them and then you'll eventually find out who's who. And then you'll run into that chatty Kathy that's not going to give up. She's going to tell you everything about everybody, even stuff that you probably don't want to know. You've already done your due diligence before you made the offer, talking to local law enforcement. You've researched Megan's Law. You've looked in the neighborhood at these particular crime apps, seeing what's going on, and that was all vetted by you, so you're good to go on their time. Before you spend the money on the home inspection, doesn't mean you can't have it scheduled. Also, the appraisal, usually it's too early for them to have contacted you anyway. But let's say your lender's on the ball and they've been ordered as well. Usually that does take 2 or 3 days. Even if you shrunk your contingency timeframes and the contract allows, let's say, 7 days for you to investigate the property via home inspection and other methods, and you reduce that to maybe 10 days to try to make your offer more attractive, as we talked about in a previous video, no sweat. You still have plenty of time. I'm talking within the first 24 to 48 hours, getting out there and door knocking the neighbors. You don't have to have access to the property again. If it's seller occupied or renter, tenant occupied, we don't need to go. We're just going to go talk to the neighbors and we're going to make the introduction. So usually how it goes, I have the whole family there. We don't do it like I was a cop in the past by standing on the side of the door so we don't get shot. We'll just stand right there in front of God's glory and everybody, bang on the door and say, hey, I'm Connor McIver, Real T1 Group. These Thelma, Louise, and Janet, they bought the house next door. We're actually in escrow, and we just wanted to introduce ourselves. And then you shut up. And then they do all the fancies, the high fives and the handshakes. And then they and then I do my best to guide the conversation, find out if they're owners or tenants, find out if they have any issues in the neighborhood. How do they like living there? Do they like the neighbors? Do they care about the neighbors? Is everybody pretty friendly? Is everybody kind of mean and angry? Is there anything to watch out for? Anything maybe they didn't understand? That's sometimes when, the HOA is kind of mean, because if we leave our trash cans out too long, then we get letters or nasty notes. Oh, that's good to know. And then, is the ex-wife that you have restraining your ex-husband? That's something else that you kind of find out during this kind of investigation. It's important. Once you make these introductions, then as a real estate agent, what's the risk? Well, the risk is they run into something that they don't want to deal with. But it's better you find out then, get that phone call after they bought the property. And then after they said, well, Connor, we trusted you. Oh, what a horrible thing. What a horrible feeling, because you want their trust. You don't want to violate it. So this is a very necessary part, folks. A lot of agents don't do it because, what do they say? It kind of opens up Pandora's box because we don't know where it's going to go. We don't know what you're going to get, but you're going to get it anyway. So you might as well go bang on those doors and without being hidden, than going in trying to hide under the blanket so nobody notices you as you're, wrestling around in there. Once you do that, you find out the neighbors behind, you find out the ones on either side, and maybe some people won't answer the door. That's fine. You'll find somebody. I haven't ever had it where nobody was around, nobody to talk to. And usually that does do a good job making me as the agent, the buyer's also more confident and comfortable in that process because now they've done those investigations. Crazy. Get your home inspector out there, get your pest control inspection happening, get that appraisal out there, which your agent should be there with you, by the way. It's super important to have me there during those processes because these are things that if we're going to be following the seller asking for any kind of a request for repairs, any kind of credits, I'm going to have to be there so I can explain to the agent how important these particular things we're asking for are. In some cases, agents don't go and the client goes alone, which just baffles me because there's so many things that need to be attended to, asked for, and investigated during these different processes that a home buyer's they're just going to go in not armed as well as they should be to do something for you. More than just negotiating up front, showing your properties, writing the offer, and getting it accepted. Part of that process is going through the entire escrow time frame and attending to the things that needing to be attended to, and not just paperwork. We can hire a transaction coordinator to make sure that paperwork's on time. Teach that problem-solving ability, going out there to the property to experience everything, so we can then convey all that information back over to the seller's agent, so then the seller's agent can articulately explain it to the seller so we don't have any misunderstandings. And if the seller decides at that time, hey, I'm not going to help these people at all, I really don't care, then at least we knew that we did our best to get to that point. And if you as the home buyer decides to cancel because you still have your contingencies in place, you have all the ability to potentially do so without any harm to yourselves, besides the money you've already spent, right? So if you already spend money on the home inspection, the seller takes you to pound sand. If you already spend money on the appraisal, the seller says we don't care, or whatever it may be. Again, there's money there that's already changed hands, but it's better that happens versus you getting into a situation that's going to be with, living in that house. You're not going to be able to sell it right away. It's going to take some time to get that equity build on it, like, we always see with real estate. So that's incredibly important. Anyway, so this is another video in this process of buying a house. Tomorrow, in that video for Sunday, let's go ahead and talk about the best way to request things. And then even before that, we'll back it up. What are some of the things we see on home inspection reports? What are some of the due diligences that occur when people are doing their investigations on the neighborhood, with the HOA, with the sellers disclosures? What do those look like? And then the best way to balance all of that new data, new information, and then make honest requests to the seller about issues that may have been found. Should you have the seller do it? Maybe have them replace and fix these particular items, these health and safety items the home inspector found? Or should you do it by having the seller credit you a certain amount of money? We'll get into that tomorrow. I think that's very valuable because some people take it upon themselves to have the seller to do it, but then their cousin Cooter is the one that went to Home Depot and took some class 15 years ago. Was it even around 15 years ago? Anyway, took a Home Depot class, and they're the ones that do the repair. There's ways to make sure that doesn't happen, but that's why you need somebody savvy on your side. We'll play with that idea tomorrow. We'll talk about it. I'm Connor with Honor. When you're ready, don't forget, ZoomMeSCV.com. You'll get my calendar here, right at the bottom. Where is it? Somewhere in here? Plugin's not working. But you'll get the calendar. You'll be able to go and you'll be able to see all that information and then be able to schedule the time right here. Boom. Here's the calendar. So you'll be able to come here. You'll be able to schedule a time and you'll be able to basically sit with me for 30 minutes or an hour to discuss what your plans are in real estate, and then what potentially is going to be the best way for you to get those plans accomplished. And then, of course, very simply, we will go into all those different processes, just like I talk about here. So pick a time. More than happy to help. And I'm Connor with Honor. We'll see you in the next one. Thank you, everybody. Be well. We'll talk to you soon. Have a fantastic Saturday.